The warehouse on Edgewood Avenue pulsed like a living thing, bass thumping through the concrete, smoke curling around flickering neon lights. The underground rap crowd was thick tonight, the kind that lived for humiliation, for blood on the mic. Every eye was locked on the small stage where a woman stood alone, hoodie up, eyes calm, hand clutching the mic like it was a blade. Tasha, verse Coleman had never battled in front of this crowd before. But she wasn't here for fame, she was here because people said she couldn't hang with the men who ruled the local circuit. Dre, Kilo, and Stax, 3 names whispered like a warning. Together, they were known as the Kings. They destroyed every challenger who dared to step up. The host leaned into his mic, grin wide. "Y'all ready for something different tonight?" The crowd roared. He turned toward Tasha. "She says she's talking all 3 kings in one go." Laughter broke out, sharp and cruel. Tasha didn't flinch. She'd spent years writing verses in cheap notebooks, late nights in tiny apartments, her mother's voice echoing in the background, "Baby, you better learn to fight for your words." And she had. When Dre started, his flow was smooth, practiced, dripping with arrogance. The crowd cheered each punchline aimed at her gender, her background, her wannabe status. Kilo followed, rhymes sharp and venomous, and Stax closed with cheap jokes that made the crowd howl. Then it was her turn. She stepped forward, pulled her hood down, and looked them dead in the eyes. Her first line hit like a gunshot, quiet at first, then spreading through the crowd as silence fell. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut deep. She tore through their verses, flipping every insult back on them, exposing their recycled bars, their fake bravado, their history of disrespect toward every woman who tried to rap in that space. By her third verse, the crowd wasn't laughing anymore. Phones were out, recording. A chant began to rise, verse, 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 until the warehouse shook with it. Dre's smirk had vanished. Kilo stared at the floor. Stax looked ready to walk off stage. When she dropped her final line, 3 kings down, long live the queen, the crowd erupted. Even the host froze for a second before raising her hand. Flashlights flickered. Cameras captured Dre's jaw tighten, his pride breaking in real time. Tasha smiled faintly, sweat glistening on her forehead. For a brief moment, she felt unstoppable, a woman who had fought every shadow of doubt and won. But as she stepped off stage, she caught Dre's eyes watching her, cold and unreadable. Renee, her friend and producer, met her near the back door, grinning. "You just made history, girl." Tasha laughed, breathless. "Yeah, but something tells me history's not gonna take it well." Outside, a car engine revved in the dark, headlights flashing once before disappearing into the night, a warning she didn't yet understand. The fire had been lit. She just didn't know what it would burn next. The night after the battle, the video had already hit 50,000 views. Clips of Tasha's final verse flooded social media, her words looping over shaky phone footage, her name climbing hashtags faster than she could refresh her screen. Comment sections exploded with fire emojis and praise. Queen of the underground. She buried the kings. But in another corner of the city, the men she'd embarrassed were nursing their wounds. Dre sat in the back booth of a smoky bar, jaw clenched, scrolling through the endless stream of comments. Every new one cut deeper. Dre got cooked. Kilo froze. Stax looked scared. He slammed his phone on the table hard enough to make their drinks shake. "Yo, chill," Kilo muttered, half-drunk, eyes glassy. "It's just a video. People forget fast." Dre shot him a look. "Ain't nobody forgetting this, bro. That girl clowned us in front of everybody, and now the whole damn city's Logan." Stax rubbed his temples, voice low. "We could drop a track. Get our side out. You know how it goes." Dre leaned back, the dim light catching the scar near his temple. "No. Words ain't enough now. She disrespected me in public, I'll handle it in public." The bartender dropped off another round, and their silence thickened. Each man carried his own shade of humiliation. Kilo's was wounded pride, Stax was quiet fear, and Dre's was pure rage, raw and festering. Meanwhile, across town, Tasha sat with Renee in the studio, still buzzing from victory. "You see how they froze up?" she laughed. tapping a rhythm on the mixing board. Dre's face looked like he'd seen a ghost. Renee smirked, but her tone softened. You hit him where it hurt, girl. But you know how these dudes are. They don't take losing well, especially to a woman. Tasha shrugged, masking the unease creeping in. Let him talk. I'm not scared of bruised egos. Still, she noticed the messages starting to pour in, anonymous accounts calling her disrespectful, lucky, ungrateful. At first, she ignored them. She'd been hated before. But the words got darker, more personal. Some mentioned the bar where she worked. Others mentioned her mother's name. When she showed one of the messages to Renee, her friend frowned. This ain't just trolls. Somebody's trying to shake you. Tasha laughed it off, but later that night, when she stepped outside, she thought she saw a black sedan parked across the street. The headlights blinked once, just like the car outside the warehouse. She froze, but when she blinked again, it was gone. Back in the bar, Dre stood up abruptly, slamming his glass down. She wants fame? I'll make sure she remembers who gave it to her. Kilo hesitated. You talking to threats now? Dre leaned close, voice low and venomous. I'm talking respect. The kind you take back. Outside, thunder rolled through the sky as rain began to fall, washing the city in reflections of red and blue neon. Somewhere in that storm, Tasha's name echoed, on screens, in whispers, in anger. None of them knew it yet, but the real battle had just begun. The next morning, sunlight spilled through Tasha's blinds, but she didn't feel its warmth. Her phone buzzed nonstop, notifications stacking one over another like bricks building a wall around her peace. Mentions, reposts, tags. At first, it felt like victory echoing. Then she noticed the tone had shifted. Watch your back, verse. You embarrassed the wrong ones. Queens fall the hardest. At first, she laughed, tossing the phone aside. Internet hate was nothing new. But as the day went on, the messages got uglier, not jokes or insults now, but threats. Someone sent a photo of the alley behind her apartment. Another sent a voice note of heavy breathing followed by a whispered line from her own verse. 3 kings down. Her stomach tightened. At the studio, Renee was already scrolling through her feed when Tasha walked in. You see this? Renee asked, her tone hard. She held up her phone, a deep fake video of Tasha edited to look like she was mocking the men again. It's spreading fast. They're trying to flip the story. Tasha frowned. Who's posting this? Accounts that don't exist. No names, no pics. Somebody's pushing this hard. Tasha sat down, pressing her fingers to her temples. They can't handle losing, so they're gonna try to make me the villain. Renee sighed. You need to chill with posting for a bit. Let it cool off. But later that night, alone in her apartment, Tasha's curiosity got the better of her. She scrolled through the comments, hundreds of strangers debating her like she was a headline. Some defended her, others tore her apart. She stopped at one that read, "Funny how her mouth's still running. Maybe we should shut it for her." Her hand trembled slightly. She locked her phone and set it face down. The silence of the room pressed in, only the low hum of the refrigerator breaking it. A knock came at the door. 3 short taps. She froze. Another knock, louder this time. She peeked through the peephole, no one there. Her heartbeat thudded in her ears. She waited, breath shallow, until the hallway light flickered off. When she opened the door minutes later, only a folded paper lay on the mat. In jagged handwriting it read, "You started it. We'll finish it." She backed inside slowly, locking the door twice. Her phone buzzed again. A new message, a video clip this time. It showed her performing at the battle, but the camera angle wasn't from the crowd. It was from the side of the stage, behind her. That's when she realized someone had been recording from a spot only performers could access. Someone who'd been close. The next day, she met Renee at a cafe. "They know where I live," Tasha whispered, sliding her phone across the table. Renee's expression hardened. "This ain't random trolls, Tash. This is targeted." "What do I do?" "You document everything. Keep the messages, the threats, all of it. And stay alert." Tasha nodded, but her gaze drifted to the street outside, to a familiar black sedan parked half a block down. Renee followed her eyes. That's the same car? I think so, Tasha murmured. For a moment, neither spoke. The sound of rain against the cafe windows filled the silence. Maybe, Renee said carefully, you should let the police know. Tasha looked back at the car. Its engine was running, exhaust curling like smoke from a fuse. I will, she said quietly, but her voice didn't sound convinced. Outside, the sedan pulled away, slow, deliberate, almost taunting. And just like that, the messages didn't feel like warnings anymore. They felt like promises. By the time Tasha reached the studio the next morning, her nerves were frayed. She hadn't slept. Every sound in her apartment, the pipes, the wind, even her own footsteps, had started to sound like danger. She forced herself to push it down. Work was the only place that still felt real. Renee was already inside, tuning the monitors. The hum of machines filled the room, comforting and familiar. You look like you ain't closed your eyes all night, Renee said, glancing over her shoulder. Tasha tossed her bag onto the couch. Didn't. Couldn't. Renee hesitated before replying, You call the cops? Tasha shook her head. Tried. They said online threats aren't a real case unless something happens. You know how it is. Renee's jaw tightened. So what, we just wait for something to happen? Tasha didn't answer. She turned toward the mic, putting on her headphones. Let's just record. They ran through takes for nearly an hour, Tasha channeling her exhaustion into verses sharp enough to cut glass. Her voice trembled with anger but carried power, each line sounding more like a confession than a song. Renee watched silently, recognizing something different in her tone, something wounded, defensive, ready for war. Between takes, Tasha caught a reflection in the glass window of the recording booth, a shadow moving near the hallway door. She whipped off her headphones. Did you see that? Renee frowned. See what? The door. I swear someone. Before she could finish, the door creaked open. Dre stood there, casual, leaning against the frame with that same half-smile from the battle night. Damn verse, he said softly. Didn't know fame made you paranoid. Renee straightened immediately. You got 5 seconds to say why you're here. Dre raised his hands. Relax. I'm not here for drama. Just wanted to talk. Tasha crossed her arms. You think showing up uninvited after your little fan club started threatening me is talking? He chuckled, stepping closer. You really think I got time to send messages? Girl, the internet moves on. You're the one keeping it alive. Renee moved between them. You need to leave. But Dre ignored her, his tone dropping. Careful what stories you start telling. This industry's small. Make the wrong enemies, you disappear fast. Tasha's heart pounded. Is that a threat? He smiled again, empty, calculated. It's advice. Then he turned, leaving the door half open as smoke from his cigarette drifted into the room. For a moment, neither woman spoke. The faint smell of tobacco hung heavy in the air. Renee broke the silence first. He's playing games. Trying to get in your head. Tasha stared at the fading smoke. He already is. Later, as Renee packed up the session files, Tasha scrolled through her phone again. A new post had gone up. Someone had recorded her conversation with Dre from inside the studio. The caption read, Verse begging Dre for mercy after lying about the threats. Her stomach dropped. Renee, this was uploaded minutes ago. Renee rushed to her side, reading over her shoulder. How the hell wait? He was recording you. Tasha's fingers trembled as she locked the screen. He's not just messing with me online anymore. He's turning the story against me. The air inside the studio felt tighter now, the comfort gone. Even the machines seemed to hum with unease. Renee whispered, We can't handle this alone. Tasha looked up, her expression hollow. Then we find out who else is behind it. Outside, the city lights blurred against the windows like smoke, restless, growing thicker by the second. Somewhere beyond those lights, the next move was already being planned. The show that night was supposed to be small, just a local performance at the Blue Flame Lounge, a smoky club tucked between pawn shops and flickering neon signs. Tasha almost didn't go. After Dre's visit to the studio, she'd promised Renee she'd lay low. But music was her armor. If she stopped performing, it would feel like they'd already won. Security's tight, the promoter had said over the phone. Ain't nobody getting near you tonight. She wanted to believe that. Still, when she stepped out of the cab, she caught herself scanning the shadows automatically, the alleys, the corners, the glint of glass where headlights used to be. Inside, the crowd was warm and loud, the beat heavy enough to drown her thoughts. For a few fleeting minutes, she felt like herself again, not the target of rumors or online hate, but Tasha Verse, the woman who made words burn. Renee stood near the stage, arms crossed, watching like a bodyguard disguised as a friend. Tasha gripped the mic, voice steady. They can talk all they want, she said into the crowd. But I'm still here. The audience roared. She launched into her set, every lyric sharp and defiant. Cameras flashed. Hands waved. For those few songs, she was untouchable again. But when the show ended and the crowd began to thin, the warmth of applause faded into a chill that clung to her skin. She lingered near the back exit, waiting for Renee to finish talking with the sound tech. The hallway was narrow, dimly lit, just a single red bulb humming above a metal door that led to the alley. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, she hesitated, then opened the message. Good show, Queen. Back door, right? Her breath hitched. She turned just as the door creaked open. 3 silhouettes stood against the alley light, Dre, Kilo, and Stax. Rain glistened on their jackets. Dre stepped forward, a mocking smile on his face. Ain't no cameras now, Verse. You still got bars? Tasha froze. You shouldn't be here. He laughed. This is our city. You the one out of place. Stax shifted uneasily behind him, but Kilo cracked his knuckles, stepping closer. You thought you could clown us and just walk away? I didn't clown you, Tasha said, her voice trembling but steady. I won. Dre's smile faded. Then consider this your encore. He lunged. Tasha dodged instinctively, stumbling backward as her bag hit the ground. Kilo grabbed her arm. She twisted free, catching him across the face with her elbow. The movement only enraged them more. Stax muttered, Man, this ain't right, but Dre shoved him aside. Rain poured harder, thunder rolling overhead. The alley echoed with curses, scuffling footsteps, and the clatter of her dropped phone skidding across the wet pavement. Then, a voice. Hey! Renee burst through the door, wielding a metal mic stand like a weapon. She swung it once, catching Kilo in the shoulder. He yelped and stumbled back. Tasha broke free, gasping. Dre turned on Renee, fury twisting his face. Back off, Dre! Renee shouted. You touch her again, I swear. Dre hesitated, the tension snapping like a wire stretched too tight. Then he spat on the ground. You think you can hide behind her forever? This ain't done. He motioned for his crew, and they backed away slowly, disappearing into the rain. For a long time, neither woman moved. The alley stank of gasoline and wet concrete. Renee finally spoke, voice shaking. You okay? Tasha nodded, though her knees felt weak. They were waiting. They knew where I'd be. Then someone told them, Renee said quietly. Somebody close. Tasha looked down at her phone lying in the puddle, screen cracked, still glowing with that last message. The words blurred under the rain. She picked it up, staring at her reflection in the broken glass. Her own face looked like someone else's, tired, frightened, but burning with something new, resolve. They wanted me scared, she whispered. But now I know what I'm fighting. Renee nodded. Then we fight smarter. Behind them, the club lights flickered and went out, leaving only the hum of the rain and the faint trail of smoke drifting where Dre's cigarette had fallen. Neither of them noticed the car parked at the far end of the alley, engine idling, a camera lens glinting through the cracked window. By morning, the video was everywhere. Someone had filmed the confrontation in the alley, the shouting, the chaos, the brief moment when Renee swung the mic stand. But the clip was edited. It didn't show Dre's crew surrounding Tasha. It didn't show the threats. Instead, the caption read, Tasha Verse attacks fans after show. Her stomach turned as she watched it on her cracked phone screen. The post had already hit 100,000 views. The comments were brutal, people calling her unstable, violent, a fraud. Overnight, her victory had turned into scandal. Renee stormed into the apartment, phone in hand. They flipped it, Tish. They made you the aggressor. Tasha rubbed her temples. I know. I saw. They're sending it to blogs. I already called the label. They said they're reviewing the situation. Tasha laughed bitterly. Reviewing? I was the one attacked. Renee sat beside her, the fight draining out of her face. This is what Dre does. He's not trying to hurt you physically now, he's killing your name. Later that day, the call came. Her label's rep spoke in a rehearsed corporate tone. Until things clear up, we'll be putting your project on hold. Best to stay quiet, let this fade. Stay quiet. Tasha repeated, disbelief twisting in her chest. You think silence is gonna save me? But the line had already gone dead. Days passed in a haze. She avoided the studio, ignored calls, stopped posting online. The constant ping of messages felt like an alarm she couldn't turn off. When she finally logged in again, she saw that Dre had released a new track, Queen's Fall. His lyrics painted her as a liar, a manipulator who staged the threats for attention. The hook repeated, she lit the match, now she cries about the fire. The song climbed the charts in a day. Everywhere she went, the store, the cafe, even the train, she heard that line. It crawled under her skin until she could almost believe it herself. Her inbox filled with canceled bookings, withdrawn collaborations, and silence from people who'd once cheered for her. One evening, Renee came by with takeout and a grim look. You can't let them control the story. Drop something, a video, a track, anything. People forget the truth if you don't feed it. Tasha stared at the blank notepad in front of her. Every time I speak, they twist it. Every word becomes a weapon against me. Renee leaned forward. Then make it the last weapon they ever twist. Tasha said nothing, but later, as rain tapped against her window, she opened her notebook. Her pen hovered over the page before she began to write. Slower than usual, every word deliberate. Anger and fear poured out in rhythm, forming something sharper, truer. A song about power, loss, and the cost of being heard. By dawn, her hands ached, but the lyrics were finished. It wasn't a defense, it was a warning. A reckoning. She recorded a rough version at home, her voice raw, her tone dark. When she listened back, she barely recognized herself. The woman on the track didn't sound afraid. She sounded dangerous. She sent the file to Renee with a single message. It's time. Renee's reply came almost instantly. If you drop this, they'll come for you again. Tasha typed back, then they'll know I'm not running. She hit upload before she could change her mind. Outside, the first light of morning crept over the skyline, pale, silent, and full of promise. But in the reflection of her laptop screen, her eyes looked tired, almost hollow, as if she already knew what her choice would cost. The internet didn't sleep, but neither did Tasha. By the time the first wave of comments started rolling in, her diss track, 3 Kings Down, was already spreading like wildfire. She hadn't done a promo run or dropped a teaser. It was raw, uploaded without warning, her voice carrying the fury of weeks spent in silence. The beat was stripped and heavy, a slow burn that let every line slice clean. She didn't just call names, she told truths. Dre's verse exposed his fake charity front used to launder money. Kilo's gambling debts, the threats to promoters, Stack's quiet deal with a rival label, all laid bare in rhyme. Each lyric was evidence disguised as poetry. Each punchline hit like confession. When the track dropped, the reactions split the internet in two. Some hailed it as a comeback masterpiece, others called it suicidal. Within hours, hashtags trended. Hashtag 3 Kings Down, hashtag verse returns, hashtag cancel Dre. Renee burst into Tasha's apartment, breathless, phone in hand. You just nuked their entire empire, she said. You realize that? Tasha managed a tired smile. They wanted a response. I gave them the truth. Renee shook her head. Yeah, but truth cuts both ways. They won't let this slide. Tasha leaned back, staring at the screen where views climbed by the minute. Then let them come. I'm done hiding. For the first time in weeks, she felt a strange calm, not safety, but power. The noise of the world had turned into rhythm again. By evening, Dre's crew fired back online. Kilo went live on Instagram, pacing in his car, face tight with anger. She's lying. All cap. She's desperate for clout. His voice cracked halfway through the rant, and the comment section exploded with laughing emojis. Stax stayed quiet, deleting his social media accounts altogether. But Dre played it differently. He released a short video hours later, him sitting in his studio, smoke curling around his head, the words, "You talk too much," verse, flashing across the screen before cutting to black. No sound, no caption. Just silence and threat. Renee called immediately. "You see that? He's baiting you." Tasha didn't answer. She was staring at her phone again, scrolling through a string of new messages from unknown numbers. Screenshots of her tracklist. Photos of the front door to her building. A final text, "Nice song. Let's hear it live." Her chest tightened, the air in the room suddenly heavy. "Renee," she whispered, "they know where I live." Renee's voice sharpened. "Pack a bag. Come stay with me for a few days. Please." Tasha hesitated, glancing at her wall where newspaper clippings and lyrics were pinned like pieces of a map. "If I run now, it means they win. This isn't about winning. It's about surviving." But Tasha barely heard her. In her mind, the rhythm of her own track still played, her voice echoing, defiant. She'd told the world their truth, and for the first time, it was them who looked exposed. Still, as she closed her laptop, she couldn't shake the feeling that a door had opened somewhere she couldn't see, and something was already stepping through. Outside, in the distance, thunder cracked again, rolling low and slow across the city. The storm she'd summoned was finally coming home. The night after the diss track went viral, the city felt different. Every sound outside Tasha's window seemed amplified. Footsteps, laughter, engines idling too long. It was as if the streets themselves were holding their breath. She hadn't slept in nearly 2 days. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Journalists asking for statements, fans sending support, trolls hurling death threats. The messages from unknown numbers had only grown darker. Some sent clips of her walking to the corner store, others screenshots from inside the club where she used to perform. Someone was watching her. Renee had insisted she stay at her place, but Tasha refused. "If I leave, they win," she'd said again. But now, sitting in the dim light of her apartment, she wasn't so sure who they even were anymore. Her reflection in the mirror looked hollow, eyes rimmed red, lips cracked, hands trembling as she rolled another cigarette she wouldn't finish. The silence between each heartbeat felt like a countdown. Then came the knock. 3 slow thuds. Too steady to be random. She froze. Her phone vibrated on the table, a message. From an unknown number again. "Told you we'd come for that encore." The knock came again, louder this time. She grabbed her phone, dialed Renee's number with shaking fingers. "Someone's outside," she whispered. Renee's voice came through, frantic. "Tasha, don't open the door. I'm calling the cops right now. Just stay put." Tasha's pulse hammered in her ears. She moved quietly to the window, pulling the curtain just enough to peek outside. A black car idled under the streetlight. Inside, shadows moved, 3 silhouettes. Her breath hitched. She backed away from the window, chest tightening. Memories of that night in the alley came rushing back. The shouts, the hands, the smell of gunpowder and rain. Her vision blurred, but she refused to fall apart. Not now. Not again. The front door shook violently. A man's voice called out, calm, almost casual. "We just want to talk," verse. "Open up." Her hands found the baseball bat near the couch. She gripped it so tightly her knuckles went white. "Leave," she shouted, voice trembling but loud enough to echo down the hallway. Laughter followed. Dre's laugh, low, taunting. "We made you famous once, remember? Thought you'd like to return the favor." Tasha's eyes darted to the back window, her only escape. She grabbed her backpack, stuffed her phone, hard drive, and a small notebook of lyrics inside. Her heartbeat pounded like drums as she climbed onto the kitchen counter, pushing the window open. Cold night air rushed in. Behind her, the door cracked, wood splintering. She slipped out just as the lock gave way. Outside, her feet hit the wet pavement hard. She ran, past the dumpsters, past the flickering light at the end of the alley. Her lungs burned, but she didn't stop until she reached the main road. Cars blurred past, horns blaring. She ducked behind a parked bus and fumbled for her phone again. Renee's name flashed on the screen. Tasha, are you okay? The cops are on their way. I can't go back, Tasha gasped. They know where I live. They broke in. Then come here. Please. I'll send you my location. Tasha nodded even though Renee couldn't see her. Yeah. Okay. As she started walking toward the nearest subway, she looked back once, just once, and saw the black car at the end of the street. Its headlights blinked once, then turned off. Her hands shook. The city suddenly felt endless and small all at once. She knew this wasn't over. She'd crossed a line she could never uncross. But as she disappeared into the underground, the last thought that pulsed through her head wasn't fear. It was rage. The kind that burns hotter than terror, the kind that plans revenge. By morning, the city was already awake with her name. Clips of her running through the night had surfaced, grainy security footage from a nearby store showing a woman sprinting down the alley, bag on her shoulder. The caption beneath it read, "Rapper verse flees after dropping explosive diss track." Tasha watched it from Renee's couch, her face half hidden under a hood. The police had come and gone hours earlier, taken a statement, asked questions she barely answered. Did you see their faces? Any proof they were there? Proof. She almost laughed. Proof was all she had ever given, through lyrics, through pain, through truth, and still, nobody listened until it was too late. Renee paced the small apartment, restless. You need to go offline for a while. Lay low. Let this blow over. Tasha shook her head. That's what they want, silence. Every time I stay quiet, they rewrite the story. Tasha, this isn't about a story anymore. They broke into your place. They're hunting you. She turned to face Renee, her eyes raw but steady. Then I'll stop running. I'll end it where it started, on stage. Renee froze. You're not serious. But Tasha was already pulling out her phone. Her fingers flew across the screen, posting a single message to her followers. One last show. Tonight. No filters. No fear. Within minutes, her post exploded. Fans thought it was another stunt, a marketing move. But those who knew her, the ones who'd followed her since the open mic days, felt the weight behind the words. By evening, the small club where it all began, the Firehouse, was packed to the walls. Security was tighter this time, cops patrolling outside, journalists lurking near the entrance. Inside, smoke and heat wrapped the crowd like a heartbeat. Tasha stood backstage, hands trembling around the mic. Her heart raced not from fear, but clarity. This was where she'd found her voice, and tonight, she'd use it for the last time. Renee squeezed her shoulder. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do, Tasha whispered. They tried to silence me. This is me saying I'm still here. The host's voice boomed through the speakers. Make some noise for the one and only verse. The lights flared. The crowd erupted. Tasha stepped into the glow. The noise hit her like a wave, cheers, shouts, camera flashes. She closed her eyes for one breath, then spoke into the mic. This one's not about fame. It's about truth. The beat dropped, slow, haunting. Her voice cut through the smoke like glass. Every verse was a confession and a weapon. About the night they followed her home. About the blood, the silence, the fear. About how justice never came because men with power wrote the rules. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some cried. Some recorded. Some stood frozen, realizing the story behind the music wasn't fiction. Halfway through the song, she saw movement at the back of the room, 3 figures pushing through the crowd. Her voice faltered for a second, but she didn't stop. The music kept rolling, her words sharper, louder. The room pulsed with electricity. They were halfway to the stage when the lights went out. Screams filled the dark. Someone shouted her name. Then, a single, deafening crack. When the lights flickered back on, chaos erupted. People ducked, ran for the exits. Tasha was on her knees behind a speaker, clutching her mic like a lifeline. Blood dotted the stage floor, not hers. One of the men was down. She couldn't tell who. Police sirens wailed outside, red and blue lights slicing through the haze. Renee appeared out of nowhere, grabbing her arm. "We have to go." Tasha stumbled to her feet, eyes wide. "I didn't shoot, I didn't." "I know. Move." They ran through the side exit, pushing into the freezing night. The noise of the crowd faded behind them, replaced by sirens and shouts. As they disappeared into the backstreets, Tasha's mind replayed the moment again and again. The flash, the sound, the fall. She didn't know who fired the shot. But she knew one thing for certain. Her truth had finally drawn blood. And once again, the city would tell her story, twisted, divided, and dangerous. By sunrise, the story wasn't hers anymore. Every channel, every blog, every social feed screamed the same headline. Rapper verse involved in shooting at local club. Some added more venom. Gang feud erupts after diss track. None mentioned the truth, that she was the one being hunted. Tasha sat in Renee's apartment again, this time surrounded by news clips playing on loop. Her hands were still shaking. The smell of gunpowder clung to her clothes, no matter how many times she scrubbed her skin raw in the shower. Renee muted the TV, pacing in front of her. "They're twisting everything. They're saying you set it up, that you staged the whole thing for attention." Tasha let out a bitter laugh. "Of course they are. I gave them a story they can sell." "You need to go to the police," Renee said, voice rising. "Tell them everything. The messages, the threats, the break-in. You can't just hide." Tasha looked up, eyes hollow. "They didn't listen the first time. What makes you think they will now?" Renee opened her mouth, then stopped. There was nothing to say. On the TV, a news anchor read from her script with fake sympathy. Witnesses report a female rapper, known as Verse, fired multiple shots before fleeing the scene. One man is confirmed dead. Police have yet to identify the suspect. The image cut to a blurry photo. Tasha mid-performance, mic in hand, face lit by stage light. To anyone watching, she looked powerful. Dangerous. But in this apartment, she was shaking, exhausted, hunted, cornered by lies. Her phone buzzed again. A new message from an unknown number. One gone. Two left. Ready for the finale? Her stomach dropped. Renee grabbed the phone, reading the text. "Oh my God, they're still out there." Tasha stood abruptly, pacing toward the window. Outside, police cruisers rolled past, their lights reflecting off the glass like slow flashes of accusation. "I have to finish this," she said quietly. Renee frowned. "Finish what?" "Tasha, this isn't a game. Someone's dead." Tasha turned, her voice low but steady. "Exactly. And if I don't speak, they'll make sure everyone thinks it was me. I've already lost my music, my name. I'm not losing my truth too." Renee's eyes softened. "Then what do you plan to do?" Tasha looked down at her trembling hands, then toward the small notebook lying on the table, the one filled with lyrics, names, and secrets she'd never released. They started this with words. "I'll end it the same way." She opened the book to the final page, uncapped a pen, and began to write. Her handwriting shook, but her words were sharp, deliberate. A confession, a statement, a final verse that would make sure the world heard her side before anyone could bury it. Outside, another siren wailed, echoing through the city. Renee whispered, "Tasha, whatever you're planning." Tasha didn't look up. "I'm planning to survive." The camera lens stared back at her, silent, unblinking. Tasha sat cross-legged on the floor of Renee's apartment, her face half in shadow. The single lamp beside her cast a soft, golden glow that made the bruises under her eyes look darker, older. A small recorder blinked red beside the camera. It had taken her hours to find the courage to press record. "This is for whoever still believes in truth," she began, her voice low, trembling at first, then firming. "My name is Natasha Coleman, and I didn't kill anyone." She paused, looking down at her hands. I know what the headlines say. I know how they made it look. But they've been trying to silence me for months, ever since that night behind the studio. She took a deep breath, eyes flickering toward the camera. Dre, Kilo, Stax, they weren't victims. They were predators. They used power, money, and fear to keep me quiet. But I fought back the only way I knew how, with music. Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. When I dropped 3 Kings Down, I didn't do it for clout. I did it because no one believed me when I said what they did. The track was proof, every lyric tied to something real. But instead of being heard, I was hunted. Tasha reached for her phone and held it up to the lens, scrolling through the messages, screenshots of threats, photos, timestamps. This is what they sent me. This is what I lived with. The blinking light on the camera kept pulsing, steady as her heartbeat. I know what you're thinking. Why not go to the cops? I tried. They called it drama between artists. They told me to let it go. Her tone hardened. But how do you let go of something that still follows you every night in your dreams? For a moment, silence filled the room. The city hummed faintly in the distance, sirens low, far away. Then she leaned closer to the camera. Tonight, I'm giving you everything. The footage, the names, the receipts. I'm uploading this to every platform I can before they find me. Her eyes shimmered under the light, not with tears, but with defiance. If this video goes viral, good. Let it. Let the world see the truth they tried to bury under headlines and lies. Her phone buzzed again on the floor beside her. A known number. One new message. She hesitated, then flipped it over. The text read, "You should have stayed quiet." Her stomach twisted. For a moment, she considered deleting the recording, running again. But then she remembered the sound of that gunshot, the crowd screaming, the blood splattering near her shoes. Fear had followed her long enough. She hit upload. The progress bar crawled across the screen. 25%, 48%, 73%. Every second felt like a lifetime. A noise outside made her freeze, a car door slamming. Then footsteps. Slow, heavy. Getting closer. Renee appeared from the hallway, whispering, "Someone's outside." Tasha stood up quickly, shoving the hard drive and her phone into Renee's hands. "If they get in, you run. Get this to the press. Promise me." "Tasha, no. Promise me." Renee's eyes filled with tears. She nodded. "I promise." The upload finished. The screen flashed, video published. Tasha turned off the light. The apartment fell into darkness. The footsteps stopped just outside the door. Her voice, soft but steady, broke the silence one last time. "Let's see them spin this one." The doorknob began to turn. The world woke to chaos. By dawn, Tasha's confession video had exploded across every platform, millions of views in hours. Clips were being dissected on news panels, debated on podcasts, remixed into songs. Some called it bravery, others called it self-destruction. But everyone was talking about verse. Renee hadn't slept. She sat in her car outside a police precinct, the hard drive clutched in her lap. The apartment was gone, swarmed with flashing lights and yellow tape. When she'd fled after the door burst open, she hadn't looked back. She didn't know if Tasha made it out. The last sound she heard before running was a single scream and the shattering of glass. Now, hours later, all that remained was the echo of Tasha's voice online, calm, clear, unflinching. Across the internet, fans rallied behind her, launching hashtags. Hashtag justice for verse, hashtag believe her, hashtag 3 Kings Down truth. Old interviews resurfaced. Moments of Tasha smiling, talking about using pain as power. Every frame felt like prophecy. But the police statement was colder. One female suspect missing after altercation. Seen under investigation. Renee slammed the steering wheel, tears blurring her eyes. She wasn't a suspect, she whispered. She was the story they never wanted told. On a nearby cafe TV, a news anchor spoke in that careful, rehearsed tone. The video, titled My Truth, was uploaded shortly before a possible break-in at the residence of rapper Natasha vs. Coleman. Authorities have yet to confirm her whereabouts. Then came the clip, Tasha's face filling the screen, her eyes burning with resolve. If this video reaches you, it means I finally stopped running. Renee's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Her stomach flipped before she opened it, but this one wasn't a threat. It was a link. She tapped it. The video loaded, shaky, recorded from a crowd the night of the shooting. It showed Tasha on stage, mid-performance, rapping the final line of her unreleased song. "You can bury my body, but not my verse." Then the lights went out, and the recording ended. Renee stared at the screen, heart hammering. The timestamp was from minutes before the shot. Someone in the audience had filmed everything. Someone knew what really happened. She hit forward and sent it to every journalist, every outlet, every activist she could find. If Tasha's voice had started the fire, this proof would keep it burning. By evening, protests filled the streets, murals of verse painted across walls, her lyrics turned into chants. People carried signs that read, "She spoke, we heard." And somewhere in the noise, an unfamiliar voice took the mic at an impromptu street concert. Hood up, face shadowed, but the cadence, the rhythm, was unmistakable. The crowd went silent as the new verse began. They thought they killed the message when they killed the name. But words don't die, they just learn to change. Phones rose instantly, cameras flashing. Renee stood at the edge of the crowd, heart pounding. The woman on stage lifted her hood for a moment, just enough for the streetlight to catch a familiar scar above her eyebrow. Then the beat dropped, and the voice roared through the city once more. Later that night, a single post appeared on Tasha's old account. No caption, just a black screen and 3 words in white text. Verse lives forever. Within minutes, it was shared millions of times. And though no one could say where she was, or if she was even still alive, her truth had outlived them all. Because sometimes, legends aren't written in ink or blood. They're written in sound, and they never fade. Weeks passed, but the world refused to move on. Everywhere, verse had become more than a name. It was a movement. Graffiti of her lyrics covered underpasses, her voice played from car speakers and street corners, her story dissected by podcasters and journalists alike. The city that once ignored her pain now spoke it in unison. Renee watched it unfold from the sidelines. She'd done every interview, met every detective, turned over every file. But no matter how many questions she answered, one remained. Where is Tasha Coleman? Police claimed there was no body. No trace of blood inside the apartment matched hers. No security footage showed her leaving. It was as if she had simply dissolved into the noise, vanished into her own legend. One night, unable to sleep, Renee drove to the firehouse, the same club where everything began and ended. The building was boarded up now, its neon sign flickering half-dead in the drizzle. She parked across the street, engine off, and just sat there. Inside her car, the radio crackled faintly before a DJ's voice came through. Tonight marks 1 month since the disappearance of rapper Natasha Coleman. Whether she's gone or in hiding, her truth still echoes louder than the lies. Then came the track, 3 Kings Down, live cut, a remixed version of her final performance, stitched together from fan recordings. The crowd's roars bled into her voice, raw and defiant. You can chain my body, but you'll never cage my sound. Renee felt tears sting her eyes. A soft knock on her window made her jump. She turned. A young woman, maybe 19, soaked from the rain, held out a small flash drive sealed in plastic. You knew her, right? She asked quietly. Renee hesitated. Who are you? The girl smiled faintly. Someone who listened. She placed the flash drive on the car's hood and walked off into the mist before Renee could say another word. Heart pounding, Renee plugged the drive into her laptop right there in the car. A single file appeared, verse_mp4. She pressed play. The screen filled with static for a moment, then cleared. Tasha appeared, sitting in a dimly lit room, wearing the same black hoodie she wore the night she vanished. Her voice was calm, certain. If you're watching this, it means the truth made it out, she said. And if I'm gone, don't waste time trying to find me. Find what I stood for. She leaned closer, eyes steady. They tried to kill my name, but names don't matter. Stories do. So tell mine right, tell ours right. Every woman who's been silenced, every artist they tried to erase. This isn't my ending. It's my echo. The video ended abruptly, no timestamp, no location data. Renee sat frozen, the rain tapping against the windshield like a rhythm. Outside, a faint melody drifted from a nearby alley, a street performer rapping to a small crowd. The flow was different, but the cadence, the emotion, it was hers. Renee stepped out of the car, drawn toward the sound. The performer wore a black hoodie too, face hidden by shadow. When the verse ended, the woman looked up for half a second, just long enough for Renee to see a familiar scar above her eyebrow. Then she disappeared into the night, leaving only the echo of her voice behind. You can silence the singer, but never the song. Renee stood there, trembling, a small, knowing smile breaking through her tears. Because maybe Tasha wasn't gone at all. Maybe she'd simply become what she always was meant to be, unstoppable, untouchable, eternal. The next morning, a mural appeared downtown. A larger-than-life portrait of Verse, head held high, eyes unflinching, words painted in gold beneath it. Verse lives forever. And somewhere, hidden from the world, a woman smiled at the sound of her own legend breathing through the city, proof that truth, once spoken, never dies.